The good news, being introvert is a superpower in networking rather than some kind of a lack of something because connection is created in time, giving, showing attention, remember things about that human, returning to show attention, being able to know, to open up, to be vulnerable, to be there for that person. And it doesn't happen in one meeting. It happens through time.
Welcome to Beyond the Noise. Today, our guest, an amazing expert in networking and philanthropy, and she's also director of MJJ Fondas, which is an amazing organization in Lithuania. Welcome, Kotryna. It's a pleasure to have you here today. It took us a few goes to catch you, but we're incredibly excited.
Yes, exactly. Like third time is lucky time. Thank you guys for inviting me to share my knowledge.
Thank you for being with us. Kotryna, do you mind also maybe adding your background?
The key thing to say about myself is that I'm becoming very happy when I connect humans, when I match the right people. And it doesn't happen every day. But I guess I was, since this is the end of the year, I've been reflecting on what's happened this year. And I got many presents myself in terms of the people around me, new partners, random LinkedIn message, inviting to connect, which grew into serious partnership, doing a great international, projects, helping to find jobs for a couple of my friends, connecting the people who are seeking for philanthropic grants with the right foundations and so on and so on. So like I've been in this gratefulness mood for the last couple of weeks, realizing how much of this goodness happened this year. So I'm mostly about people, but like we have two or few different sides. So my second half is actually about being in nature, guiding people to explore and to connect with nature. And recently I realized that this word connecting, connections in my life takes like three shapes. One is like any leader, any interesting human. Most of the time, I'm searching for the way to connect with myself, through myself. Another one is connecting humans. So it's like relationships, building communities, connections. And the third one, which happened recently, the last 2 years, is connect human to nature, because I'm very present there. And this is like, I guess, important combination about me.
So the key word is about connecting.
Yes.
That's amazing. And how did this come about? Did it happen naturally, or it was your goal that you were, going towards? Tell us more.
In terms of like this all the networking topic and creating connections. All right. So, like my mom told me once that when I was, I don't know, I think 5 years old or something, when they asked me what I want to do in my life, typical questions. At some point I said that I want to make friends. And later it was different other professional options. But like at some point it was, I want to make friends. And when I look back and look into my life, I would say that I'm getting paid for making friends and helping people to learn how to make friends. In a very basic meaning, but at the same, it's complex. When we adults, it's complex. It's not like, hi, let's play. It's a lot more, but at the same time is about very simple thing. Yeah. Hi, let's connect. Let's have fun together or something interesting. And if some people you can do it, and some people there is no match. It's normal in this world. And since I always was an active, outgoing, I would say extroverted person. Now I'm getting more introverted with the age, but I've been always wanting to be among people, to be useful, to listen, to give attention, to take care, and so on and so on. That's why I think my professional path was also shaped because of this. Talking about connections, I would say that I got my most interesting professional opportunities because I dared to approach someone. And this is one way of networking. When we do homework, we find and spot those people who might give us an opportunity, open the doors in our life. And another option, and what's happening most of the time, much more than the first one, this magic elevator pitch and one-time conversation, it would change our life, is, just doing your job well, with extra effort, extra mile, being seen by people, and then opportunities comes to you. So like all this connection thing is really important in my life because I gain a lot from it as well. But at the same time, like 3 years ago, I started my own business next to the foundation which I lead is help professionals to adapt this philosophy of creating connections, of giving, of finding the right people, finding the right interesting match. And this connection became, the word connections became, something that makes me money. But at the same time, it's a mission. That's why it's very, very interesting. It's not just like another entrepreneurial idea I have. This is the short way to say what connections, what role connection play in my life.
Kotryna, I have a ton of questions to follow up on that. I want to start with the way we met. We met at the event where you made a fantastic presentation and it was based on networking. And you had it stuck with me and I'm repeating it, so I am borrowing it from you. You had this saying, network is your net worth, which really stuck with me because it's really encapsulates exactly what networking means. In your own example, you had opportunities to meet somebody through the same act of networking, and that yielded not only connection, it yielded business, it yielded projects, it yielded new ideas, and this is really, really impactful from the way I see it. So the question I have, you mentioned you have the project that you're doing where you empower people to go into networking, go into acquiring new connections. How do you deal when people are a little bit scared? I would say they're a little bit unsure whether they need any more connections, that fear playing up in their mind. Should I even get exposed into this new environment of networking? Because obviously that's meeting new people, going to new places and so on.
I love the saying, your network is your net worth by Tim Sanders. Thank you for reminding it to me as a key line here, I think. And also recently, just before I answer your question, recently my partner, Dina Vinci, who is working with strategy, she said, Kotryna, it's not about net worth. It's about impact. Your network is your impact. And that was like, wow, this is another level. And
that's a new level. Yeah.
And of course, you can make an impact through the people. It's not like you isolated alone doing great stuff in the world. Everything happens through the people, with the people, or doesn't happen because of the people, right? So this made me think, right, that the more interesting personalities, humans we have around us, the more impact we have on everything, on our lives, of course, first of all, but also on their lives, on some changes, I don't know, environment, communities, politics, and so on, so on. But like returning to your question, when I started my mission to help professionals to think mindfully and strategically about networking in Lithuania, first of all, my main tool and format was, of course, going and giving talks and doing corporate trainings, coming in for a couple of hours, bam, 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 inspiring everyone. And of course, it's important because people, like, through those short meetings with me, instead of just reading the books or thinking about this skill as going to events and shaking hands with people they don't know, they kind of get understanding about the depth of the skill, right? How it's not about events, it's about who you want to meet, how you give back, and what do you do, right? Because everybody gets paralyzed when, especially more introverted personalities, more sensitive personalities, thinking about this huge room full of people they don't know, and you going to approach them. And of course, the biggest fear, and you get rejected, which is really happens. Awkward conversation happens a lot, but not like this pure rejection. So I came to this this year, to this form of actually inviting a group of people to go and explore this skill for a bit longer time than 3 hours, so like 2.5 months. And I gained a lot from this format because it's such a beautiful exchange with the participants, because I started to realize what actually people, why they hesitate, what are the fears. And you can make the impact only when you understand, right? So customers or your fellow fellow explorers of this skill. So I realized that most of the time is some kind of limiting beliefs, or definitely some traumas from childhood, from school, from university, from parents. I mean, like, we all are walking combination of something we didn't went well some time ago, and our brain just fixed it as, oh my god, I'm gonna save you from that in the future. So approaching someone new, talking to the people I don't know, for many people is a huge problem, because we are afraid to be rejected, since our main key need as a humans is a need of belonging, right? So it's natural fear to be rejected. The similar fear is that we're not going to have anything to talk about with that person who I'm going to approach, and it's going to be awkward. So in a way, it's also kind of rejection, that I'm less than these people. So it's imposter syndrome, that many successful professionals from the first glance, especially women, I don't know why, they have this inadequate relationship with other people, especially those who experience or have some kind of, corporate hierarchy positions. They see themselves less than them, and then they're afraid to approach because they don't think they will be able to carry on conversation. But I would translate this into, I'm not gonna be able to impress or look very interesting in that conversation, and so on and so on. As that there is a long list of why people are afraid of approaching, connecting people. But the best thing that during the longer time, when you practice this, when you unfold different topics of this skill, different teams, and do practical stuff without a big stress, you kind of, pump your muscle, like going to the gym. It's not that you read a book about the gym and you get fit. The same is with networking. I read many, many books. There's so many books about networking. But what I noticed, that small practices, homework, reflection with your peer, what didn't work well, what happened, this group therapy, like I say, works perfectly in a way that afterwards they lose the tension of doing a mistake or having the awkward conversation. And this is like the same as public speaking. When you go on the stage, first times are terrible, you're all shaky, but then more relaxation, more realization, and more feeling of the audience and yourself. So that's the way. I think the key of the program I came up this year quite recently, and already witnessed 3 groups of, around 30 participants, is time invested and dedicated to practice and reflect.
Yes, it sounds to me like a little bit of like exposure therapy, right? Approach.
Exactly.
Is when you're slowly exposing yourself to something that you might be uncomfortable with, or have some sort of a fear or limitation, like you said, with, and seeing the reality of it. Because in our heads, we create all sorts of crazy scenarios of how, horrible it's going to go, especially with when it comes to networking. I'm no different. I will share myself. To me, to go into the room of 100 of people and network is, I think, to this day, is a little bit of a nightmare.
It's a big effort.
But it's almost a little bit of a work with ego as well, where, you might not be liked. You may not be as useful in the conversation as you would like to be, because you might encounter an expert in the field, and whether you like it or not, you're not going to have as many insights to add to his expertise. Is that in a way sort of like the intention that we're going into the networking with? So are we going in with an intention to impress? Are we going in with an intention to make a connection? And maybe that aspect also matters. What do you think?
Very well said. I mean, this is the key to stress relief, I think, I believe, because I've been in many different networking situations myself. And since I preach about that, I'm very self-observant. How do I feel? What I missed that I feel not so comfortable? What makes me feel comfortable? And so on, so on. So I would say the key is the attitude, like you say. And the best attitude to go into the room is the attitude of a student or journalist. I go into the room not to be the most interesting person, but to learn about others, to understand who is doing what to expand my world, to expand the universe around me. The thing that you need to prepare, of course, the homework is mentioned in every book to have build a successful skill. The homework is something that we do. We sit down and think why I'm going to this event, what I want. I would love to know what kind of situation in my life I have. Maybe someone could help me with an advice. Topics is very important for me. Maybe I'm looking for some opportunities or some connections for my project, insights, problem solving, and so on, so on. Like just to understand what are my needs and why this event particularly is on my agenda, and as well going through speakers, for example, just to understand who gonna be in the room, maybe seeing someone, LinkedIn, understanding who are organizers and so on. It's like homework is at least 10-15 minutes before going to the event to understand why and who going to be there. Like also quite a good part of the homework is to think what questions I could ask for interesting people who are have huge experience, I don't know, in all the topics that's gonna be brought in the conference or event, not to feel awkward, right? What is most natural questions for me, like not what do you do, right? But like I'm not talking about small talks. I'm talking about like, keeping conversation as a journalist. What research I would do in this event, right? And when we have this kind of a flag or I don't know, something to hold on, it's much better because we have a role, not to sell something or to sell ourselves to be the best and most interesting person in the room, but to get to know people, to collect valuable information, to get an advice. And this is the key to success. I
It
believe.
addresses, Kotryna, and thank you for sharing this. And what Anastasia also said, it addresses one of the issues I was having with networking over past, 10, 20 years. It just felt very superficial, networking, because as if you want something from that person and you want to impress. But what you are saying with this exercise of looking at it from a long-term perspective is shifting focus from a short-term perspective where you just make a connection to a long-term perspective where your goal is to build a relationship. And that probably in my head, it allows to shift, the focus from the fear to curiosity, where you're genuinely interested in other person. You want to find out more. And you said approach it as a journalist.
Perfect. I mean, like you mentioned word curiosity. And once I was in UK meeting my friends, and friend of the friend asked, what do? I told about networking and he said, networking is a skill about being curious and kind. And I was, oh my God, this is a top combination of two words that actually describe how we should be in this skill to be successful, if there's the right word talking about success in general. I mean, like being curious is something, is a key, and being kind, of course, being sharing, giving, listening, giving attention, which is I guess in this really noisy world, is one of the key gifts that we can offer to others, our full attention when they talk, when they are there. The question is, do you think we can learn to be curious, or it's something either we are curious about others or we are curious about ourselves only? And this is my, question, which I didn't.
But if you go
yet.
back to
What do you
your
think?
childhood and anyone's, as children, we're all curious. And I don't know what happens somewhere. I don't know when, like on the way to, maybe,
Too much
I don't know,
information.
or too much schooling or too much parenting. On the way to adulthood, we'll lose this curiosity. So maybe it's not about learning some new skill, but it's about maybe remember that as human beings, we are naturally curious.
It's almost like unlearning, because to me, the curiosity ends when there's too many rules. When there's too many rules, you sort of box yourself in, and you give up. You give up looking. Flexibility and curiosity dissipates a little bit. And it's almost a point of unlearning that you you're allowed to be curious. It's okay not to follow the rules. And, it's okay to create your
and
own.
further
maybe.
to this, Anastasia, thank you for bringing it up. I think it's also related to the topic of approaching it as a play. So without rules, and you approach it as not something that there are strict, criteria, what to do, what not to do, but approach it as a free play and see what comes out of it.
Perfectly. I just wanted to say that curiosity comes from relaxation. And usually there's something, when a game, a play is something that relaxes us. And when we are in the mode that we have to be, impressive, or we're gonna have to do sale here, or to get attention, or to, I don't know, many things that we carry on in disturbs us from this. So the key, and I guess because humans are very, very different in terms of, how they see others, there is this Hamilton, like strengths test, I would say, method, which says that you probably heard about it. Then the many, DISC and Gallup, and so Hamilton's one of those, which says that there are different talents, different superpowers in different people according to character and experience and so on. And you have to dig deeper in where you are strong, or not try to be all type of human, right? Universal warrior. It was very interesting to me. I mean, I realized this, but according to the types of people, there are also like a different combinations how we perceive others, how much we want to be with others, how we care about others. So, for example, like a typical creative director who is constantly in the head of creating concepts and ideas. Most of the time, they're interested to talk to people until they are talking about their idea, their own idea. And then, the conversation shifts to the other human being. They're not so much interested in that anymore. I mean, this is, of course, a loss. And I believe you can train yourself to be curious, but this is natural reaction. I care about my ideas. And for example, other person, like a typical salesperson, like a deal maker, team leads, human-oriented people, they enjoy being around people, and the quantity is important because the variety is important in their life, right? In their life. And this variety gives, keep them informed, allowing them to understand how the world works, giving good ideas, or the sounding board for the ideas, help to make things happen faster, and so on and so on. But like on the other scale, is this, for example, a typical data person or scientist or tech person who needs to be focused deeply and narrowly, like to make the job, to do it well. And this deep focus, of course, the big amounts of people around you drains your energy, and they prefer to stay around 2, max 3 people. So it's natural that we all different, and the same environment always going to give different signals and level of stress to these type of humans. But I still believe that, like we just said, that being curious, deciding to be curious, not pushing yourself to the super limits, finding your environment, because events is just one of many places where we can create connections. And according few authors, is the last place where we can create connections. In events, we only collect contacts. Okay, showing our face for people who need to remember us, maybe collecting some information, but creating connections is like, this process is definitely not happening around 100 buzzing people, 10 minutes coffee break, right? Type of things. So yeah, it's about just last thought that being curious, going there to give, to listen is important. But let's not forget that we also very pragmatic people. We always go with our own agendas as well. So if we go only with our agenda to get something, it's bad, right? But if we go only to give, then sometimes we don't feel what's in it for me. So it's always great that we combine these two. How I could benefit from this event, what value it can bring to me, plus what value I can create in that space and around those people. It's like a yin yang, it's always combination.
And this is where the homework actually comes
Yeah.
in really well, because if you don't do that, you can definitely get lost in one or the other. I have a question. A lot of people, when you ask about networking or going to networking events, they immediately say, well, I'm not extroverted like that, so I won't do it. So do you actually have to be extremely extroverted to be good at networking, to actually do it and create these connections afterwards?
Perfect question. Actually, the good news, and this one of the excuse really not to do networking, is I'm an introvert, right? And the good news that being introvert is a superpower in networking rather than some kind of lack of something. So why? Because if we talk about networking as creating connections, connection is created in giving, showing attention, remember things about that human, time to time returning, to show attention, to share some kind of the valuable things, being able to know, to open up, to be vulnerable, to be there for that person. And it doesn't happen in one meeting. It happens through time. Like contact hours matters in creating connections. There's this YouTube TEDx talk, TEDx Portland talk on YouTube about Rick Turotsky, who is like really big introvert, but he's a manager of Portland University's startup hub, a community manager. Like a beautiful talk, really giving a nice example of how introvert realized that he's a great connector, great networker, because he can stay in a conversation, he can be a journalist, he can remember information, reflect, and meeting other humans in that community one-to-one, which is the best format for introvert, 1-to-2, like 1-to-1 is the best. Later, he can see who should meet who, and he connects people. So connecting the dots, connecting the humans is really a superpower of more introvert person who tend to reflect and listen more than talk.
So there's no excuse then, Kotryna.
No, it's just the form. It's just the form and platform where you do your networking. Maybe you are so modest that it's you're afraid to approach someone, but maybe you can tell your friends who are more extrovertic and invite you to come to events that I would appreciate this introduction, or telling the organizers of the event that who should I meet? Maybe you could make the introduction. And usually organizers of the big and small events, they want it to be successful. They give extra time to do that, and inviting people for lunch, coffee meetings is way much better way to create connection for introvert than just going into the dramatic.
And once you build a connection, how do you transform it into a relationship?
That's a great question. And of course, there are ways, many ways of consistency, doing small things consistently in time. And then I think the time here is quite takes important role. And there's, I think the key few things that actually create a deeper connection, create a relationship with others is time, topics in common, some values in common. That would it be a sense of humor or some kind of very important topic as environment protection, or some kind of similar views and takes on certain things what's happening, or similar hobbies, like something genuine that makes that person interesting to me and vice versa. But at the same time, one of the key things to create relationship is vulnerability. When we ask for help, when we tell what doesn't work for us, when allow ourselves to be vulnerable in front of others. Because very often we think that the key value that we create in relationship with others is help. Always there for others, always in a good mood, always energetic, and everything goes well if we help others. And it is important. But as Simon Sinek said once, we create connection in this relationship, meaning with others, not by always offering help, but by asking for one, because then people become our ambassadors for us. They care about us. That's why mentorship programs are so great, because you go and ask for help for maybe more experienced professional to help you to plan your professional path, to solve certain problems, you allow them to see you whole as a whole person with, some things that doesn't work for you, things that all your mistakes and something and then we become somehow, then there is this trust that comes up when we see the person as a whole with all the successes and losses. So I think, time, vulnerability, and things in common.
And staying human, right? Not forgetting that we're not this perfect, because again, with online, with all the social media, with the networking and everything else, it's almost this pressure of trying to be this perfect version of yourself, where none of us can ever be that. We have great moments.
Here.
Yeah, which we share, but we have many more not very positive moments.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, maybe bringing up the ego, maybe working on that and realizing it's okay to not be perfect, not be in the mood, like you said, all the time, and not have all the answers, which we always feel that we have to have. I have one follow-up question for you, and that's maybe a little bit for my own curiosity, but I'm sure it will be helpful for many. It's about online networking events. Personally, I almost think that maybe they don't yield as much connections, because when you meet somebody in person, face to face, I think we have much more impact. We have more opportunity to be this natural self because we're there in person. We may misspeak something. We might, spill a little bit of drink somewhere. These little moments will make us seem a little bit more human, and the connection will be a little bit more genuine. But personally, that's just my opinion, obviously. I feel that online events don't give you as much. And what is your professional opinion of that? Maybe I'm completely wrong, and I hope I am.
It's similar as a massive conference events, for example. You meet for a coffee for 5 minutes. You have this first, of course, there are a lot of chemistry and the other things that we kind of sometimes underestimate, but it's not only our intellect that plays in this connection, and that's why screens limiting this whole human body experience. But at the same time, it's very short, right? But at the same time, you can feel, is there a connection, interest, similar values, similar sense of, interaction, humor, a similar energy that person invests into the conversation with you, similar field of professional topics. And I would say that it's not a lot, 5 minutes, right? To test this first yes or no, I would say, the connection. Online is quite similar, although it eliminates the body full picture. But if we are eager to learn more about that person, and we do our homework, and we see, that someone might be interested in what you do, or you interested in what that person do, I always say that the key is follow up. So it's just a starting point, live event or online event. The key is follow up, this personal approach. And I would be maybe skeptic 1 year ago, but since this year happened, this magic discovery call with this dinner strategist who heard my LinkedIn live conversation with her friend and said, "Oh, I loved your thoughts. Maybe you have 30 minutes for a discovery call. I would love to learn more about what you do and let you know about me." And I was like quite tired. It was, I think, the end of the beginning of summer, after all the spring fast and furious networking events and finalizing project before summer. But I was like, okay, let's do that. I preached that. So let's do 30-minute discovery call. And we ended up talking 1.5 hours about, because immediately it was that good vibe, between us, like this very similar soul or character, whatever you call it. And after the summer, I organized her events in Vilnius when she was visiting. And then after half a year, she returned to this project, inviting me to be part of it. And and so on and so on. Maybe it's not very usual, but I would say that what was the key here, that was the proactivity to connect to someone, inviting for 30 minutes discovery call, discovery coffee, making a good impression, but not trying to make a good impression, just showing who you are, what you're working on. And sometimes it's just one-time conversation, but sometimes it grows into something beautiful. and very similar live events as well.
That's amazing. I mean, I definitely see this. And I think the emphasis for me, and maybe that's true to most people, but how I feel usually during the live events, whether online or offline, is that you go there with a purpose to meet people, to connect, to maybe find out something new. But there is this almost like a little bit of a pressure to make that connection. And what you're saying and what resonates with me and elevates a little bit of that is that the connection is not happening at the event. At the event, you're just gathering information, just like you said, if you approach it as a journalist, they're just gathering information during interviews, but then all the work that goes in, it's all afterwards. So it's all the work that goes after that makes the impact or makes that positive result in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not going to be with, 15 people that you met at the event. It's going to be with maybe 3, 5. Others will get your, it was great to meet you message. Let me know if I can help you with anything. But those 2, 3, 5 will get this specific message with the investment of time, saying that it was great. We have things in common. Let's do something in the near future. Let's go for coffee, lunch next month. And sometimes that perfectly works. Sometimes we don't get the replies. So it's always a chance that it's not going to be a match. And it's
I would guess...
I'm quoting one of my participants, which also gave me this understanding that she brought out of this program. It can be that it's not going to be a match, and it's okay.
And I would guess for introverted people, online connection might come easier than just approaching an unknown person and offline event.
Yeah.
One quick question, and actually it's not a quick question, it's advice that I need, Kotryna. We discussed what to do. Are there absolute don'ts for making connections? Like what people should not do to build meaningful connections or to do successful network?
And it's not an easy question, because sometimes it works. Certain things, certain don'ts works for someone, right? For example, the person who always strives only value for himself or herself, somehow, make a million and is successful professional, at least seen as a successful professional. But people know that he's or she's selfish person. And other person, he's always about others, but somehow it doesn't work for that person, right? So, and then I think, so what's happening here, right? So I wouldn't probably be able to list this do's and don'ts because we all are very different. But the first thing that comes to my mind is let's not be selfish in terms of attention, in terms of wanting to be seen, only us, about going into connection only when we want something from that person. There is also the saying, build your network before you need it. If we go with a sales proposal or we need to, we have a limited time to get something from that person because we need to do our KPIs or whatever, or we didn't show the attention for a quite connected person for a long time, but suddenly we turn on, come in with the ask to connect with very important person. I don't know, me personally, I don't feel very well, but there are people who feel perfectly fine. And there's this book by Adam Grant, Give and Take, about givers and takers. And there's always few types of people, but I'm the one who, want to give before you get. And the ratio of giving and getting is 2 to 1.
So you would need to give 2 in order to get 1.
In building relationships. Yes. But this is my philosophy and Adam Grant philosophy, right? Like I say, there are different ways people make their lives. But like talking about relationships, not the connections that you can milk time to time because they're too nice not to say no. I think it's about this ratio.
But I would guess, in any human conversation, whether it's you call it networking or relationship, we also feel the energy of another person and we kind of sense it when someone wants something from us and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, we can disclose what we want. The worst thing when we want something, we don't say and we're beating around the bush. And that person already feels that something is here, like I need to do something. So it's it's similar to what we have with this first conversation when we approach people we don't know, right? So first thing which is advisable is to give the context. Why did I approach you? Not like, hi, I was standing here. I mean, it's okay, but like I noticed you, I read about you, I follow you on LinkedIn. I would like to, show my face and say hi. But at the same time, this is cool. This attention from the human. But at the same time, the first thing which comes to most of the people head is like, so what do you want? Saying hi is fine, but maybe you want, maybe you wanted to show the face. Maybe you wanted to connect because you read a couple of interviews. Maybe you are from the same alma mater. Maybe you have friend in common, or you admire the person because of his achievement. I mean, it's important to say this, and also to disclose if the person kind of asks if I can be somehow useful for you, because most of the people have this in the conversation culture, to let the person know, not immediately, can you connect me with that or give me a job, but well, I'm looking for opportunities or this and that. And if you know someone, let me know. If you gonna meet someone. Like I always advise to the fundraisers, NGOs who fundraise, to be able to do what they do. I say when you approach the people who you see as a well-connected potential donors, well, it's okay time to time to say directly that maybe you want to support us, but sometimes it is more important to invite them to learn more about the organization, to invite them to 1 or 2 events, to invite them to be at the board of advisors, and at some point to ask them maybe they know someone who would be interested to support the mission, instead of attacking and
I guess
sending emails.
Not assuming what they may want to do.
For example, like time to time, I get this invitation from, professional friends. I wouldn't say friends. Well, from my professional network to go for a coffee. And if it's like this naked, let's go for a coffee, I'm not very happy, because like all of us, have things to do during the day, or to have the pauses in the day to do nothing. When I get this invitation, I don't feel okay to write them coffee about what. It's in my world, it's not polite in my world. But if that person would say, Kotryna, I would love to get your advice on this topic. Would you give me 30 minutes? Let's go for a coffee, or let's go for a walk. I see you as a expert in this, or I bet you have experience. Then I have a context to say no or yes for the coffee, instead of asking why. So this is like these kind of, like you mentioned about word disclosure, that comes to my mind.
Yeah. It's quite interesting, because my first thought was, isn't it a bit transactional when you kind of disclose your intent? But what you're saying, Kotryna, is about kind of letting the person know what actually we're going to do, right? So it's giving information, and it's okay to ask for help, for example. It's okay to ask for advice, or maybe share some thoughts and whatever.
Yeah.
But then you're allowing that person to decide on that.
Exactly.
Whereas when you approach it differently, it's almost like you're not giving them a choice. They just have to gamble. I might go for that coffee and maybe help somebody, or I might go on that coffee and just talk about the weather and waste half an hour of your time.
all of us have some humans in life that actually we would go for a coffee without a reason. It depends. 5, our best friends, our sisters, brothers, people we admire in terms of professional life or personal life. But like there are definitely much more in the professional circles, and sometimes we just didn't have a chance to understand the topics of the person or context of the person, and suddenly he or she comes up with this generous proposal to have a coffee. So I always say that to practice networking, it is important to go for coffees, and this discovery calls, just to give a chance once, twice a month. We're not gonna, sometimes we can be really useful for others, giving our time, advice, connection. But there is this, how you say, etiquette to invite. How do we invite someone asking to give a bit of their time for us? And just last comment, that I totally agree. I constantly thinking, is it transactional or not? And I think it's a mix. It's always a mix. A transaction can be not only sales and introductions, and transaction also can be about emotional right? Support, that I gain something from the person by giving. I think we all are pragmatic, and for me, networking is constant exchange. When it's one-way transaction, then it's not nice. It's not tangible. It's not something that will last long. But when it's constant exchange of values, creating value, would it be knowledge, contact, opportunities, emotional support, professional advocacy, then it's a healthy networking, and that's how we create connections and
Yeah,
relationships.
that's great.
That's perfectly said. Yeah, I was just thinking as you were saying, this is almost like this loop that you've described is what causes the initial connection to grow into relationship. Whether that's tangible, not tangible support of each other, that creates the basis for that to grow. That's
And just
great.
last thing, probably from my side, just to say, because some people who are gonna listen us, they would think, no, I can't do this. I'm so tired, and this is a job, and they are right, because I believe that we cannot give much if we are tired and our battery is low. Of course, sometimes the miracle happens when we actually have a conversation with certain humans. Our energy rises because we get the support, we get understanding, we laugh, we feel safe, and we get acknowledged. But very often, to go to the social environment, we need to have a battery, not to suffer. So take care of yourself. First of all, take personal time to recharge with whatever, nature, inspire, with books. And this is very important, to be able to be in a social environment.
This is great advice. After our conversation, couple of takeaways from me is to approach networking consciously, lots of curiosity towards other people, curiosity to self as well, right? What works for me, what doesn't work for me. Being human, being transparent, okay to ask for help. And yeah, that's great advice. Thank you so much, Kotryna.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Key moments.
That's right. And elevating that pressure from yourself. I think you put it beautifully. Not feeling pressure to impress anybody, just be curious and see where it takes you. And like one of your students said, if it doesn't work out, that's okay.
Exactly. But it's like the things we talk, like we summarize, right? It's about inner work. Let it be with a coach or a psychologist, or I don't know, books, journaling, meditating. I mean, it's about getting to know yourself and being okay with yourself. Because if we have a lot of trauma, a lot of things that hurted us, which came from other humans, of course, we can't trust others, and this is a process. We should take time to heal, to go through this process. And this is not like quick fix. It's years of work for any of us, and this is parallel work next to networking, creating connection with yourself, like you said beautifully.
Kotryna, before we wrap up for today, I would like for you to briefly talk about your project. You did talk throughout our talk here about the project you've created, but I know about it a little bit more because you were gracious enough to actually send it to me to see how it works. Just talk a little bit about it, what people can gain from it. Maybe one of the listeners will be happy to join. From what I understand, you're based in Lithuania, in Vilnius, but you do online as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I do a lot of things in I mean, like live, human to human thing, like training and trainings and mentorship and so on. But like I created this collab circle program, which is 2.5 months. Program of adapting and learning what is the best way for you to network, this authentic networking idea. So we go through the knowledge and information and theory to see the skill as a whole, to see different strategies, tips, tricks, and so on. But the key here is the support of the group, because group learning, group reflecting, sharing, being vulnerable, telling what you're afraid of and not comfortable with, doing homework and discussing it, it's something which really helps us not only to get inspired when we hear someone's success story and advise how you should do it, but actually really step by step learning and releasing the tension on this topic. That's why I really believe in it. And since I'm, as I mentioned already, now there's a call for the 4th group already. So I already have this understanding how this program really helps. Doesn't matter what type of personality it is, because it was always a mix of introverts and extroverts, and it's very important that these different types see each other and hear each other to understand, because we know that people are different, but only when we witness the open sharing of other person, how he wants to be seen or he sees the things, the limiting beliefs, only when we actually understand how the world works. So yeah, if somebody is interested, actually, yeah, you can you can always approach me.
We'll share the link to the program below for anybody listening so they can check it out and get in touch with you and connect with you on LinkedIn as well. It's a great concept, and I think lots of people will benefit from it. And just to clarify, that you do them not only in the native Lithuanian language, you also do it in English as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So since your
Yeah.
audience, I guess, is an international audience, the link to the English version.
And we have this tradition where we ask a quick fire question.
All right.
So how do you reach out to somebody without feeling like you are using the person?
I guess it depends on the real agenda, right? But probably showing attention, at least asking, how do you do? I saw something from your side is happening, giving at least few sentences of context that you see that person, and then asking for advice. I think asking for advice, not, for example, I need to reach that person. Sometimes not directly asking for introduction, but asking for advice how I could reach that person, or asking for the same discovery coffee for 30 minutes to get an advice on something.
And what do I do when someone only contacts me when they need something? So it's sort of like a little bit of reverse of the first one. You get a lot of that on LinkedIn. People message you and for sure this is just to get something from you.
Also depends on the message. If the person says that, look, I'm looking for a job for already, a couple of months, I feel stressed. I see that few employers. Maybe you could give me advice. How should I approach them? So this is asking for my time, without probably receiving something. But I care about people. So sometimes I say, sure. But if that person never returned to me saying how it happened, after I made a connection or gave an advice, and after another half a year return saying, hi, I'm looking for a job again. Can you help? It's probably, I wouldn't reply. Sometimes I leave freedom to myself not to reply to messages where I feel that it's one-way traffic. But if I care about that person and I kind of, already know that that person is more about taking, but I see that as a strategic personality in, I don't know, in ecosystem where I work, or I know that at some point I will need that person. I'm going to reply 3 and 4 times giving, because I'm investing. It's important to understand that you have to acknowledge that person is taker and then to know that you invest in this keeping a warm relationship, because you probably will need to take at some point from that person, or can take at some point from that person as well. Not being angry, oh my God, he never or she never shows me.
So it's not about keeping the score, but kind of feeling.
Yeah. It's about understanding your own strategy, what people are important for you, and that this person plays important role. Why not? Why not to give a bit more than that other side?
How do you build a real connection if you don't like small talk? So that's very relevant, I think, for networking.
Well, Lithuanians doesn't like small talk because they say it's superficial. It's about nothing. Simon Sinek and some of my friends say that small talk warms up the atmosphere and lets you understand if that person have a sense of humor, if he's like in the mood to talk, what is the context, more or less about where you are. For me, it's important. It's not, you can also do homework thinking about what kind of small talk I would like to have, not about weather, but I think the depth of the the first connection can be reached actually by really asking good questions, from small talk, going a bit deeper and then a bit deeper. And really depends on how much time do you have and, what kind of context and vibe and so on. So I would say questions supplementing the small talk are very important.
When should you stop trying to keep the connection alive? Is there a time where you should just distance yourself from the connection?
There are a few. I recently read a book about 5 types of wealth, and there's advice to actually evaluate most of the people that currently surrounds you. I mean, like in your life, professionally and personally. It's giving them grades of elevating you, neutral more or less, and more taking your energy away of people, right? So I think when we reflect and think about humans around us, we can go through this particular idea and flow. And if we feel that that person takes our energy, or after meeting with that person, we jump in a bad mood because that person always tells what's wrong in their life and in life in general. I think what we can do is limiting our time spent with them and rather find someone who elevates us, makes our life more interesting, and we naturally are curious about them, not pretending and not holding on something strategically important. But it's really, really different in all the humans' lives. So I would say sometimes it is important to cancel, to spend less time, to limit, than to hold on to something saying, oh, I'm creating relationships. I cannot let go of these people.
Or sometimes even have to.
Yeah.
Because we have connected before, we had maybe good interactions, but that's faded away. So
Yeah, I have
guess
a
that's
few
great
friends
advice.
I have few friends and few people who I think I grew out of this kind of relationship or connection, but it's naturally faded without both of us working on that. And still, when we see each other once a year, it's a good feeling. It's just that we don't feel that we want to invest more into this relationship. It's such a complex topic because everything what happens in life is about other people and your interaction and your relationship with them. And everything what will happen in our life or everything we're going to achieve will be because of other people or won't happen because of other people. So it's very complex.
And how do you tell if a connection is actually mutual? Is it a feeling? Is it something that you see? How is it for you personally?
The feeling that the person is interested how you're doing, not one question. So how do you do, right? Okay, and then you go to the other side. But actually having a few questions about remembering stuff what you do, remembering things what are important for you. If you some time ago shared about it, the person who time to time maybe send some opportunities to me or topics that I'm interested in, some links, some invitations, invite me for the once a year for the events that they organize. I think for me personally, it's a personal attention, remembering something about me and wanting me to succeed in whatever that means, right? Supporting me. And I always go for this combination as well.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time with us. And I'm confident that a lot of people listening will gain a lot of knowledge from you, from your expertise. And I'm really hoping that they will reach out to you and connect and go to practice this muscle of networking with your help.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing what you do, doing beyond the noise. And I'm very glad to meet you again and
Yeah,
for the
thank you
first
so
time.
much for being with us, Kotryna. It's truly practical advice you've given us, and it's a topic that is very relevant for all the leaders and professionals. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me and good luck.